an unorthodox guide to make things that matter. I hope I got that right. Or hand right now your magical iPhone. The person who created the precursor to the iPhone, the iPod, which changed my life growing up. Please, with no further ado, Tony, Franklin, Oliver, please come on up.
Hello, hi everybody. Thanks for coming out.
You're welcome.
We get to do this again.
Yeah.
We did this, what, 7?
Well, yeah, I think, with all of these, they have to be bold. And it doesn't matter, they have to have some experience, but a lot of times they have to be bold, and they have to articulate enough of a story, understand their technology enough, and bring innovation enough. Now we get the other side, which is we have some CEOs, and we get snowed too, right? So when we have 250 different investments, 85% of those are going to fail. 85% are going to fail. And sometimes that's based on technology, based on whatever, or sometimes it's just based on management. And we've seen stories like Theranos. We've seen where I knew, because I had seen this story play out, but I was already in the Valley 20 years at that point. I saw how many companies said, I'm going to be the next Apple, or I'm going to be the next whatever, and they die along the way because they can't get that capital, right? So for us, I was very clear that we needed to do this if we were going to fulfill the vision, which was this, we have a very grand vision of a whole different way of how you do an intelligent home. So I knew we needed to do that. So I look at each of the companies and say, what is their, where do they need, can they be standalone? Or do they need to be acquired into something bigger to actually achieve their vision? And then look at that. So that's one thing. The other one is, look, people still get married every day, even though 60% of marriages end in divorce, to rounding numbers, right? 55 to 60. They still get married. And when you get acquired, it's getting married. And sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. It's a cultural issue. It's cultural mismatches that cause acquisitions to fail. 80 to 85% of all acquisitions fail because of a cultural mismatch. And so that's just how it works. And so you have to take your chances.
A lot of this book is about company culture and management culture and those kind of things. One of my one of my favorite chapters is called, I think it's called F Massages.
Yes.
Is that right?
F massages.
Which are talking about perks and the kind of things that you came to expect in a maybe now bygone era, certainly a pre-COVID version of Silicon Valley. But can you talk a little bit about your thesis of that and what are in your views, the pitfalls of corporate culture when companies get too big?
So, well, it's not just too big. It's company cultures that are even small, that when you start hiring people and you hear the headlines about, oh, I get massages at work and all my meals are paid for and I can get them at work, and then your whole life becomes about work and you're taking the job based on the perks and not the job, that's when things have gone very awry. So before, pre-Google really, pre-Facebook, pre-Google, we had a typical culture in Silicon Valley. You went out to lunch and you did your things, but then Google said, we're gonna own you. We're gonna give you every perk under the sun. And then Facebook decided that they had to compete with Google, so they did the same thing. And so it became this culture that first seemed like, oh, that's great. And then it became an entitlement culture. So when you give a perk and you give it all the time, you give it every week, every month, people start going, well, that's what's expected. And when you take it away, why don't I have it? When it's like, no, like it's nice to have. People forget about it. I have an anecdote in the book where a guy who worked for me said he brought roses to his wife every Friday. Every Friday, every week, that they were going to come, but there was not the, oh, that felt good. But when it didn't happen, it was like, are you sleeping around? You forget about me? Where's my roses? So you just have to remember human nature. Perks, from time to time, nothing wrong with it. Benefits are more important. Benefits is what helps your family, helps the group outside of the company to create a better environment. That's the thing you should be investing. Not because when you have perks and you're not going home, and you're not like, and the people at home don't get the perks. They're like, wait a second, what about your life outside of work?
It's interesting because you have these conflicting narratives, and you have some CEOs, one particularly famous, rich one in particular, who is known for like sleeping on the sofa of his offices.
Sure.
You know, you billionaires being like, I'm going to work until 4 a.m. every single day until I look, 15 years older than I actually am. And then I meet people like you who seem relatively balanced and well-adjusted and well-traveled, and you manage to have a family alongside all your success. And I don't want to do that. Tell us how you do it. But do you need to fetishize work culture in the way that some startups did? This idea that you burn the oil at all ends. Is it required to be a success?
At General Magic, we burned ourselves out. We were trying to change the world, and we burned ourselves out, and there was a bunch of us working 80, 90, 100-hour work weeks. We were sleeping under our desk, and this was when we were 20 and everything. We were eating every meal there, and we became, and I specifically, socially unhealthy, emotionally unhealthy, physically unhealthy. It was just bad. It's toxic. And I had to reboot my life when I was 25, 26 to go and get the balance. Because when you're doing stuff at the highest levels and you're really putting a lot of effort in, you really have to watch that you're healthy. Because if you're not healthy in all of those dimensions, you're not going to be able to do good work. You're not going to be able to work with people. You're just a mess. And so to do the best work, you still have to find a balance. It doesn't mean you're doing 30 hours a week. It doesn't mean you're doing 40 hours a week. But you're probably doing 60 hours a week, something in there. And you have to dedicate yourself. But you also have to take time to let your mind process what you're working on so you can take a step back and actually, look up and go, oh, maybe this isn't right. Maybe that's not right. People get so tunnel vision that they keep going and they don't hear, it's an echo chamber. They don't hear anything from the outside. And then they end up with products and things that are just make no sense.
Let's talk a little bit about your wider life then, because you now live in Europe.
I've been in Europe now 9 years.
And you've kind of moved all over
Yeah.
in the last few years. You've experienced different cultures. We're in a different culture from the Valley today. When you look out at the places that you've lived and the places in the world trying to do technology in a meaningful way, what makes a successful startup culture for you? Like in the cities that you've been, everyone's trying to be Silicon Valley.
It's the same everywhere. I watched the next version of Silicon Valley get created in Paris.
Yeah.
I watched it in, I'm watching it in Portugal now, watching it being created. And again, it's about people who are mission driven, and there's a buzz in that team. It can be 5 people, 20 people, 30. And in the energy, it is so magnetic. You're like, oh my God. You can feel it when you walk in. Because I've been in those environments. I've been in big companies where it's like, it's a mausoleum. I've been in small companies where it's a mausoleum. You're like, oh my God, they have all the money, but nothing's going on. We talk about remote work. Like the best startups I saw during COVID, they were together because they know they needed to be together to make that happen as fast as, make their innovation happen as fast as possible. Because timing is not just about getting it out on time, getting it at the right time for society, but it's also getting it out before anyone else and doing it. Because if you take General Magic, it took 4 years for us to get something out. You need to do stuff now in 6 months, 9 months, 14 months, something like that. And you need every minute to get that innovation out because someone else could be working on that at the same time. So you need to worry about the timing. You need to get it out. So yeah.
I was going to ask you a question about regulating AI, but I feel like you will have answered that a million times. So instead, I'm going to ask you a counterfactual hypothetical. What jobs are you looking forward to being replaced by AI?
Looking forward to being replaced by AI?
You're an optimist.
Let's talk about the 3 types of AI in service. First thing I should tell you is at Nest, the reason why we were able to save energy at Nest is because we had AI in it. AI's been around us for 15 years already. It's been in service of lots of different things. Our cancer vaccine company, we found the drugs based on the AI we've been using for 8 years. So we've been using AI, and we had it inside of a thermostat. We just couldn't call it AI. Because if we called it AI 10, 15 years ago, people were like, I don't want AI in my thermostat. Now everything has to have AI in it, or like it's not modern, right? So it's very interesting. Again, the social context and the timing of when you talk about the technology versus you hide it. So getting back to AI, there's 3 types of AI that I really see. There's AI to replace people. There's AI to augment people, or I call it intelligent assistance. Or there's AI to train people. I think to train people and augment people, it's amazing. To replace people, there are some things, and it's mundane work, just like we got the cotton gin back when we were starting, getting cotton to take the seeds out of the cotton. There are menial jobs that people want to up-level to, and that we can replace. So, when we had calculators, right? We had people who were literally calculators writing down things in finance world, and we got rid of it. There were people all just calculating books. Now we use spreadsheets and other things. So I think a lot of stuff in the low-level finance area. I think a lot of stuff in the very first stages of, so in finance, in legal, a lot of those entry-level things that we do today are going to get automated away. We're going to see summaries happening. We're going to see financial first drafts of things like what we normally see. You would work with a team of junior people to say, okay, give me a summary on this business. Give me a summary on that business. Go through all these numbers and do audits on these numbers. That stuff's going to go away. You're going to get reports, and then you're going to have a team above it who's watching all that stuff and then checking that. So I think a lot of menial stuff is going to go away that we think of. But that's going to up-level us.
I like this because this means that there's going to be more editors in the world. So this bodes well for me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot more editors.
I like this vision of AI.
There's going to be a lot more editors. But no, it's not something we should be scared about. Remember, as humans, we've adapted and assimilated to the technology we built. So we grow with the technology we create. Like when we had fire, we figured out how to use it, right? It can hurt us, it can help us. Same thing with all the other technologies we have. We grow with the technology and co-evolve with the technologies we produce. So we're going to do the same thing with AI. Is it going to take over from us? I highly doubt it. Is it going to be just running everything around? No. Is it going to take away jobs? Absolutely. But is new jobs going to be created? Absolutely. So it's just a replacement.
Let's talk about something which I think you feel pretty strongly about and feels prescient this week, which is deep fakes and truth, which I think is related to
deep fakes, right? Yeah, sure. The Taylor Swift.
Exactly. Right? Deep fakes are everywhere again. It's becoming harder and harder to consume information, know where it's coming from. ChatGPT obviously has these hallucinations, and so there are all these questions around truth. You've worked in cryptocurrencies, and you work with Ledger on crypto.
Blockchain.
You have a quite interesting idea which you want to express to me, which is this idea of a kind of an authenticated version of the internet.
A reality capture device. Exactly. And a reality output device.
Exactly. Can you kind of expand on what the world is going to have to look like, what we need to build next in order to be able to navigate an internet, a digital world full of endlessly and instantaneously created fakes? How do you navigate that world?
Okay, well, you're setting me up, so it's going to be a long-winded way, but let me try to give you an idea. Okay, so today, who's here heard of the dark web? Raise your hand if you heard of the dark web. Okay, you guys know what the dark web is?
No, I was going to say who buys drugs in the dark web.
So the dark web obviously is like, oh, that's nefarious. It's like the dark alley, right? Don't go down that dark alley. You don't know where you're going. That's not a good place to be. Well, the dark web's like that, right? And then we think, well, if that's the dark web, then everything we're in is the light web, right? It's all good. No, what we have now is a gray web. When it started, it was a light web and a dark web. It's now a gray web. We can't trust who's on either side of this stuff. So we're now moving into authentication, or what we call KYC, know your customer. We went from everybody knowing who each other was to avatars and, okay, now I'm going to just have my handle. You're not going to know who I am. You're going to get catfished. It's just going to be fake. Now people really want to know who you are, who they're dealing with on the other side, so we can make a light web again. And you're gonna see a set of authentications and new ways so people know who they're talking to on the other side. Okay, that's this first thing. So we're gonna go to a light web, a gray web, and a dark web, like we have. But the light web is going to be for a whole set of people who want to do all kinds of incredible things on the internet, but they want to know who they are on the other side. And that's all coming. If you look, verification with real credentials is going to happen, and they already announced it on LinkedIn. Is the person on LinkedIn really them? And you're going to have a passport, you're going to have to do these other things. This stuff is coming, and it's not just for financial transactions. So that's happening to know who you're talking to. Then the other thing that we have is, are the things they're sending me, or the things I'm reading, are they authentic? And so what I call a reality capture device is, how do you know when that camera takes a picture, or that video, or that audio comes by, hasn't been modified by the time you've seen it? So actually, the way you do it is you make sure that the hardware and the things that are on one side of the thing authenticated in a certain special way, and put it in a certain database for transparency, so when you get it on the other side, you can match it up. Well, guess what? At CES, Sony, Nikon, and Canon, did you see that? Announced that now cameras that you buy from them are going to literally take the images you take, authenticate them, encrypt them in a way, and then, and we call it NFTs, but they're going to actually post that to a blockchain so that everyone can know what the real thing is, so you can go and authenticate it. This is already happening with video cameras and cameras. It's going to happen with audio devices. It's going to happen with lots of things where you know what you're looking at was originally taken by whom and where it was, what it is, and it wasn't modified by the time it got to you, right? And anything that doesn't have that, you're going to be suspect. So this stuff is coming. It's building on crypto, the blockchain. It's building on this light web and identification. It's coming over the next 5 to 10 years, because we're going to demand it, because we're not going to be able to trust the incredible convenience and information that we get on the web, whether that was deepfakes or AI hallucinations or what have you. We're going to demand that because we love the tools, but we want to trust the information and the people we're dealing with on the other side of the whatever it is we're doing.
It's a fascinating battle that needs to take place. You see this at the moment going on in colleges, because there are professors trying to keep up with their students using essay writing, like ChatGPT for essay writing. So now that there are programs that you can use to check whether it's been written by AI, and so there's this kind of arms race happening, and you can see that in miniature, this kind of quest for the truth. But it's also meaning that they're totally adjusting the way that tests are happening, and they're inventing, maybe abandoning written essays for other ways of testing people.
Sure.
And so you have a huge shift in the way that we measure human competence and intelligence that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
In real time.
Absolutely. We're gonna adjust to how we learn, and we're gonna adjust to how we've adapted, or we know that the person has really comprehended the information. But if we also look, we did that with calculators, right? No one's gonna know how to calculate. Now we have calculators in tests. You take an SAT, there's a calculator there, right? So the same thing's gonna happen. Helicopters is not the future of flight. It's not the future of taxis even. What we are doing at Jet Zero is what SpaceX did for space. So Jet Zero is a company that is creating a new...
I just have one question.
Okay.
I
love your boldness. Go for
Thank you. All right, so I'd like to know, what is your take on the Apple Vision Pro? What is your
He did my job for me.
Oh
Great.
my God.
I didn't guess that question.
Uh-oh, Jesus.
I you have to be diplomatic, because
I do.
yeah.
I don't work for anyone.
No.
Look, Apple Vision Pro is a technological marvel. Okay, it's a technological marvel. But I've been doing VR since 1987. It's a VR headset. We've already seen this many times. VR headsets are really, really great at certain things. They're going to be great in education. They're going to be great in industrial applications. They're great in commercial applications. And if they're cheap enough, some entertainment. But they're episodic use. I'm not going to show up in 5 years from now and everybody's wearing a Vision Pro watching this. It's not going to happen. Okay, it's just not going to happen. There are certain times and places when those should be used, and it's very powerful. There's a company called Gravity Sketch. You should check it out. It's 3D design.
One of his companies, sorry.
What? One of my companies. Yes, it's a plug. But Gravity Sketch, it's a 3D, and Nike's using it, Adidas, Ford, all kinds of car companies are using it. And you design in 3D with a team of people wearing the headset, and you virtually see the thing you're creating. And you can take it apart and do all this stuff. That's really cool. But are you gonna go around and walk around with this thing and then talk to people with it? Come on, that's bullshit. So you gotta remember, what is the pain you're trying to solve? What's the painkiller? Right now, people are like, what's Vision Pro? There are certain pains that can be killed with Vision Pro and also other VR headsets. But there's a lot of things that we think of, it's mostly a B2B product, okay? It's not necessarily a B2C product, business to consumer product, unless it gets really, really cheap. And then that becomes like a Sony PlayStation headset or something like that. Because you're not gonna watch a movie on a battery pack that only lasts 2 hours. It's just at $3,500 or $4,000.
Last question.
Things like it are just a refrigerator, okay? You can put bad food in your refrigerator, you can put good food in your refrigerator. You can eat too much good food and you can eat too much bad food. It's our choice for what we put into it. What we needed, and what with something like screen time is, we need the equivalent of a scale. So you can measure your digital consumption just like you measure your physical food consumption. You need nutritional guides, just like you see on the side thing of what's inside these apps. And you also need controls, putting a lock on the refrigerator, depending on if their kid's too young or what have you. You don't leave a bottle of alcohol next to your kid's bedside, do you? Right? So you need to control these things. They need to know about the technology. They need to use it. They need to be immersed in it. But it shouldn't be their entire life. They should be having conversations with people. They should not be using them at tables. I hate when you have digital nannies at tables and kids are all they have is an iPod where everybody's eating, but the kid's just like this. Not even if it's an educational game, okay, because there's amazing educational games. But no, they're just watching YouTube or TikTok or whatever. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. So we have to make sure everything in balance, just like eating healthy, right? We have to have all kinds of balance in our lives. We have to teach our kids that. And the other thing is, we can't be hypocrites. The adults are sitting there on the phones all the time, but tell the kids to get off of them. That's also bullshit. You have to model the behavior you want to see in them. So it's going to take technology, but it's also going to take social things, and it's also going to take family things, family policies to make that all work.
Well, there you go. Right, you will have another opportunity to see Tony at the book signing in the lobby straight after this session, so I hope I'll see many of you there. If you haven't read Bill, please do. There's a lot more swearing in it that I wasn't allowed to get into stage. But some great stories nonetheless.
Kids love
really
it.
Is. There are a lot of these books come out. I do genuinely mean this when I say that it is one of the most entertaining and useful business books I've read in a decade or so of doing this. So please do that. I'd like to thank our session sponsors, who are the Investment Corporation of Dubai and the US State Office, our title sponsor, Emirates Airline, our founding partner, Dubai Culture, and the Emirates Literature Foundation for hosting us. And most of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and please give a warm round of applause for Tony Fadell.